now let's cover some miscellaneous information that some of you, I think, will find helpful. And we'll start off with some energy saving information or energy saving tips. Okay, some basic things I want to cover is how do you determine what energy products to use? Now, the industry standard is if you buy something and it pays for itself in 7 years or less, purchase it, spend the money for it. And I don't know how they came up with 7 years. It may be because the average American moves every 7 years. Maybe that's it. But that is the way you need to look at all these energy items out there. And there's just thousands and thousands of energy saving products on the market. But there's some things out there that if you bought it to save a little energy, it would take you 500 years to save enough money to pay for that product right there. So it doesn't make sense. Just about everything regarding saving energy you purchase can tell you how much energy you will save. You could get that information give that information to your power company, and they would tell you that, well, if you bought this product, this is how much you would save per month. Or some of these products, they will tell you if you buy this is how much money you would save every single month. And again, the industry standard is if it pays for itself in 7 years or less, buy the product. But you make up your own mind. Now get away from thickness and think of the R factor or the R value. And the R factor is the resistance factor. And the higher the R factor, the more energy efficient it is. But get away from thinking about how thick something is and think of the R factor. For example, a solid concrete foundation wall has about the same R factor as a piece of window glass. So when you're looking at these products, see what the R factor or resistance factor is. And you'll also find there's other factors you can look at, and we'll discuss those in just a few minutes. Okay, here's some items that if you incorporate them in your home, I guarantee you're going to save money. And some of these we've already kind of touched on, but I'll just repeat them. The first one is a fresh air vent on your fireplace. One of the biggest detriments to your heating and air system is a fireplace. A fireplace will pull the heated air from your home to give it enough combustible air for a good rip-roaring fire. Some homes are so tightly constructed nowadays that the owner will need to kind of open a window or a door just to get enough combustible air to have a good rip-roaring fire. What a fresh air vent is, or an outside vent, is it creates it has a vent going to an outside wall, and what it does, it gives that fireplace enough combustible air for a good rip-roaring fire without pulling that heated air from your home. On the fresh air vent, have a damper on it so you can open and close it, so if you're not using the fireplace, you can close it. Whether it be a metal prefab or an all masonry fireplace, be sure to have a fresh air vent on the fireplace. The next item in our program I mentioned, like the Earthcraft Home, and I think I may have mentioned also the Energy Star program. You can see how to reach these programs at 24/7. But I highly recommend you comply with these energy saving programs because they're going to be talking about window recommendations. For example, in the South especially, I think it's very important that you use a low E glass, which stands for low emittance coating, low E glass in your windows. That's going to really help in the efficiency of your windows. On your ductwork, it's very important that you use a mastic to join your ductwork together that we discussed under heating and air. Because if you don't use a mastic, that is a great source of air infiltration, because if they just use duct tape like they used to, the duct tape's going to break down, that piping is going to separate. You won't even know it because it's underneath the insulation, and it's going to leak like a sieve. Also, do a blower test on your home, and that blower test is going to show, where you're losing the excessive amount of air and have, problems with air infiltration in the home, and you can correct these problems. And you will see several other items at these different sites regarding the Earthcraft Home and Energy Star products and information. And if you incorporate this stuff in your home, your utility bills are going to be far cheaper than any of your neighbors. A rotating ceiling fan is well worth the money. Picture this, air circulating around your bodies. Sounds kind of good, doesn't it? It will evaporate moisture on your bodies. When that moisture evaporates, it will cool you down in the summertime. So even though the thermostat is turned significantly up, you're going to feel cool. So have a rotating ceiling fan to keep you cooler in the summertime. Now, the place I don't like a rotating ceiling fan is like in a kitchen or something where it would tend to cool the food down, before you serve it. The next item is a whole house attic fan. I will say if you are dealing with a lot of allergies, an attic fan may not be something that you would want, because what you're doing, you're pulling outside air through the windows into the home, and it goes up to the whole house fan and then exhaust out of normally the attic area. Now you've got to make sure you have enough venting in the attic to accommodate the flow of air from this fan. But if you're not allergic to a bunch of stuff, you will run an attic fan in the spring and in the fall instead of running your air conditioner. If you do have an attic fan, put a thermostat on it so you don't wake up in the middle of the night freezing because you have that attic fan on, and it will cut off automatically. Or maybe even a timer would be beneficial. Your heating and air system is rated in SEER, Seasonal Energy Efficiency Ratio. The minimum, and this is a code requirement in many areas of the country, a minimum is a 13 SEER. At 24/7, you'll see information about how if you increase the SEER, how much energy it may save you. You're going to reach a point where to go any higher may not give you that much more benefit, but have at least an 13 SEER. A programmable thermostat, I feel like, is well worth the money because you can set it where it cuts on and off at different times of the day, different temperatures, and that way you're not fooling with the thermostat. Going in and cutting it on, going in and cutting it off, and so on and so forth. This reminds me of a little story. One time I was building a commercial building, and I had two doctors that were in the same suite, and they both liked to fool with the thermostat, and they never could get happy, with the temperature. Well, the doctor that was pretty much the more dominant doctor got me to the side, and he told me to fix his thermostat so it actually worked, and fix the other thermostat that the other doctor always played with as just being a dummy thermostat. I hated being deceptive like that, but we set it up that way, and they never had any more problems. After doing that, I did this in a house one time where we had a husband and wife that always fought over the thermostat, and we, just forgive me for this, we did fix one thermostat that was the real thermostat that the husband fooled with, and we had another thermostat that the wife always fooled with that was basically a dummy thermostat, but it's totally solved their problem. On your roof decking material, I highly recommend that you go with roof decking that has a foil backing to it, an aluminum foil backing, to reflect heat primarily in the summertime. It's going to keep your attic cooler, which will keep your home cooler. And the product that we normally refer to is what we call Tech Shield. I think it's well worth the additional money. As I mentioned in the program, one of the most efficient ways to vent your attic, and it's also the cheapest, is in your cornice. You will have a continuous soffit vent. Now, this is a continuous vent, not those little vents every so many feet, which I do not like. A continuous soffit vent. And then up on the ridge, you have a continuous ridge vent. That is the most efficient way to vent your attic, and it's also the cheapest. And you also want to vent your attic not only in the summer to get the heat out of there, but you also want to vent it in the winter to get moisture out of there. Because any of your insulation, if it gets damp, if there's moisture in the air, the R factor drops significantly. I have mentioned in that program having a ventless attic, and you will see a sketch at 24/7 on what I mean by ventless attic. It's where you're spraying foam up between the rafters and you're enclosing the attic in the conditioned area of the home. I really love a ventless attic because now your heating and air system is part of the conditioned space and it runs more efficiently. And by having a ventless attic, you do not have a ridge vent, you do not have soffit vents. However, the problem with the ventless attic is spraying that foam up between the rafters can be quite expensive on a large home. To me, it would be cost prohibitive. That being the case, I do the continuous soffit vent and the continuous ridge vent. While I'm talking on this, let me tell you a little problem we're running into the construction industry that could be changing in the future. The problem that we're dealing with now, and if there's any attorneys listening to this, you can relate to what I'm saying. The big problem in the construction industry is turning out to be mold and mildew. This is the new asbestos problem. And the litigating attorneys out there are jumping on this problem and they are just going crazy with it. I think they've overblown the problem. And it is just turning into lawsuit after lawsuit. It's one reason our liability insurance is just going out of sight. And even if the cities and counties, they don't address this, I think your insurance companies are going to address it, where the builders have to do things to minimize the risk of mold and mildew. I know in the South, we have to have vents on a crawl space so you can vent it to get the moisture out of the crawl space. But if you think about the South, we have a lot of humidity in the air. So if you think about it, if you open a vent, you're also allowing this humid air to get into the crawl space, which could be a problem in the eyes of some people. So there is a school of thought of sealing the crawl space totally, having no vents in it, nothing, to prevent moisture from getting into the crawl space. Now, this will vary from state to state because what we'll do in the South, it'll be different in the North. And I don't know how it's going to shake out. They haven't firmed up anything on this. Well, if you think about the attic, you could have a similar situation in that if you have vents up there, yes, you're letting the heat out, but in the South, you're letting moisture in. Is that going to be a problem? I don't know the answer to that, and it's going to take a lot of smart people to sort this out. Until they sort it out, I still want to vent the attic, unless I spend the money to go to a ventless attic, because I want to get that heat out of there in the summertime. You know, if you don't get that heat out of there, it's going to burn your shingles off after a short period of time. So I'm more concerned with getting the heat out than I am letting any moist air in. But I also like it in the winter to let it air out and get any humid air out of the attic. So I don't know how this is all going to shake out, but this is subject to change, and it will vary depending on what part of the country you're in. I just wanted you to be aware of that. And we will also be doing continuous updates at 24/7 to let you know about anything that's going on in the industry. This next item is in many areas a code requirement, and that's on your recessed light cans. It used to be the recessed light can was a major source of air infiltration. They now make the recessed light can that we can cover totally with insulation up in the attic. And there's no problem with that. And it's called the IC, I think that stands for insulation contact, the IC recessed light can. If that's not mandatory in your area, make sure that's the kind of light can, recessed light can that you install. I want to remind you under the mud seal on top of your foundation, or any sole plate touching a concrete slab. Between that sole plate or bottom plate and the concrete, between that mud seal and the concrete wall, you put that thin layer of foam called a seal. And that will cut down significantly that air infiltration that seeps through that area. If you don't put in the seal and you do a blower test on the home, you're going to see how much air is escaping through that area by not having that seal. Again, I want to encourage you to put a house wrap on your home. This goes on top of your sheathing, your wall sheathing, and the most well-known brand being Tyvek. And I consider Tyvek one of the best brands out there. But there are a lot of brands. You can research them and see which one you would be happy with. And I have found the companies that's all they do is house wrap. They do a better job than you subbing it out to a carpenter or something like this to install the house wrap. Also on the house wrap that I may have failed to mention in the construction part of the course is when they attach it to the wall sheathing, I want them to use plastic cap nails. I don't want them to staple it up there. I prefer they use plastic cap nails just like we did. The next item we will discuss is remodeling. I know that most of you taking this program, you're taking it in order to build a new home. However, we have a number of people that will go through our program and they're deciding to remodel, or they may go through it and decide they'd rather remodel than buy or build a new home. So there's a couple of things I want to point out in our program, the difference between new construction and remodeling. Most of our program you will use when you remodel a home, because when you remodel a home, like if you add on a room, you may go through every single phase of construction you will in building an entire home. You may have footing and foundation. You'll have framing and roof and plumbing and doors and windows and heating and air, electrical. So you may go through every single phase of construction just adding on a room that you would in building an entire home, which is why some new home builders, we just don't like remodeling, because you go through all that aggravation just to build a room onto a home. Why not just build an entire home? It's kind of our thinking if you're going to go through that much trouble. I think that's one reason that in remodeling, the profit margins in remodeling far exceed residential construction. I know in residential construction, I think the average is, it may be a little lower now, but average is like 15% profit for the builders in new construction. In remodeling, they'll take the cost of material, add the cost of labor, multiply it by 2 to get the total. So, and some major remodelers multiply it by 3. Now that is a huge profit margin. And you will find out in other programs why I think you should charge that kind of money. So the people in remodeling, their profit margin is unbelievable, but I think they need it because of the hassle they go through. I know a very, very successful, wealthy remodeler, but I think he drinks a fifth of liquor every day just to cope with it. So I'm just wasn't wired for remodeling. Now, some of the differences that you will see between new construction and remodeling is, first of all, the demolition. You've got to think in terms of how much it's going to cost to go in, tear everything out that you need to tear out so you can start back on the remodeling process. The other thing you've got to contend with is that a lot of your subs in new construction, they will not fool with remodeling, and vice versa. Because a lot of subs that are just geared to new construction, they just hate going into an existing home and just redoing stuff. So you're going to see that. Another thing is the price is a lot different. Do not use your new construction prices in remodeling. For example, an electrician, what he charges you per outlet in new construction, sometimes it's double that in remodeling. And you say, why? And I got to admit, sometimes I say, why? But they charge a lot more and they get it. So don't use your new construction pricing in remodeling. Another tip I want to pass on to you, I had a very successful remodeler in one of my classes, and he and his family would buy a home and they would remodel it and they would sell it. They'd buy a home, remodel it, and sell it. And I've had other students that, did remodeling, and I can really relate to this tip right here. I know I had one student that remodeled a home, and it took him years to remodel that home. And every time I went by there, it was just a mess. I mean, his family lived in total just chaos for years, just upset because every single room had something going on, and it was just a nightmare. I would not want to live in those kind of conditions. Whereas the student that was very successful remodeling, what he told me, and I can appreciate this now, he said that he would go into a room and he would totally remodel that room completely. And then when he left that room, he'd close the door and go to the next room. Initially, I thought, well, that's kind of an upset because, if you have the plumber there, you want to do all the plumbing. If you have the electrical there, you want to do all the electrical. But he said, no. He said, that just creates a royal mess. So yes, it may cost a little more, but he said, if you'll do that, just do one room at a time and not leave a room until it is completely finished, then before you know it, the entire home is totally remodeled. And during the course of remodeling, you didn't totally upset your family. I think that is a great tip. When you're considering buying an old home to remodel, here's how I feel like you should look at the numbers. Take the purchase price, add the cost to remodel it, or the projected cost to remodel it, add your profit or sweat equity. If you get in there and you do all this work, even if you're going to live there, you need to pay yourself for your time and effort. Don't go in there and do all this work and not pay yourself, even though it may just be on paper. You want to consider your time valuable. And when you add those three up, that total should be equal to or less than the fair market appraised value of that finished home. And let me tell you, you can talk to an appraiser. You can pay them and you can say, I want a fair market appraised value of what this home will be worth after I do all this work. And they can tell you what it will be worth after you do all this work. And so when you add the purchase price, the cost of remodel, and your sweat equity, that total right there should be equal to, less than or equal to that fair market appraised value of the finished product. For that reason, when you purchase a home, in the contract, have it subject to an appraisal. So you can get an appraisal either as is or what it will be worth after you do all this work. And you can sit down with the seller and just point out to the seller logically, here's what the home is going to be worth after it's totally remodeled. Here's what I've got to spend to remodel. Here's what I've got to spend for my profit and overhead. Therefore, this is all I can pay you for the home. Many people, when they see the reality of the situation, they will go along with reality and they will, accept the negotiated price or the lower price. Two last little miscellaneous items I want to throw out is a lot of people, when they purchase an existing home, they run into issues with the basement leaking. There are products available now you can do from the interior, the inside of the basement. One is like Dam Tight that I've heard people say, does a good job. But we had one student tell us about a product. You'll see it at 24/7 under the useful websites. It's called HD 150. And this student said it's the best product they've ever seen for sealing a basement from the inside against water leaks, HD 150. Another thing I've noticed with older homes is they could have settling or foundation problems where the footing is settling because the home was built on some type of fill. And solving those problems can really be a headache. Of course, my main recommendation is you get a structural engineer out there to see the situation, but you may want to just plant the seed with the structural engineer will a helical pier solve this problem with the settling foundation? Go to 24/7 and you can see what I mean by helical pier. This is where they'll dig down a hole beside the foundation, and they'll install a metal device that will fit up underneath the footing, and it will actually jack the home back up to the original location, and you encase it in concrete, or sometimes you can encase it in dirt. And that's one of the cheapest and best ways to solve a settling foundation problem. The next item we will discuss is if you hire a builder. I hope this doesn't scare you away, but about 70% of our former students, after going through the entire program, they were absolutely certain of one thing, and that is they never wanted to build a home. They would rather hire a builder. But they would all come to me and say, Tom, I am so thankful I went through this program because I now feel much more able to deal with a builder. I know what I want in the home, what to look for. And so they were thankful they went through the program. Some of you may recall the story I told about one of my students that went through the program and decided that they would hire a builder. What they did, though, is they went into a major development in Atlanta that was being built by Pulte Homes. And Pulte is a large national builder. And most of your large builders, they desire to build a good quality product because they don't like all the litigation and everything if they're not building a good product. However, the big builder is only as good as their builder superintendent in a given subdivision. Well, this student was a consultant, and they had time to be on the job, and they were going to have Pulte build one of their homes in their development. And this student was out there just about every day looking over the construction of the home. And when they would notice something that was wrong, according to what they had learned in the course, they would point it out to the superintendent. And most of these items the superintendent would handle. However, every now and then they would talk about something and they noticed that the superintendent did not handle it, and they were feeling like this is getting ready to be covered up and overlooked and would not be handled. So what they would do is they would call the corporate office and they would voice their complaint, and the corporate office had to agree with them. Yes, what you're talking about should be corrected. And they rode herd on the superintendent, and they would get it fixed or repaired or whatever. I know they drove that poor superintendent crazy. But when he completed that home, he called me up and he said, Tom, he says, I probably have the best Pulte home in the country, because he was able to see all during construction things that he knew needed to be repaired or replaced. Regarding hiring a builder, I've got to tell you, I can put on a builder hat and I think about everything one way, and I can put on a homeowner hat and I think about everything a different way. So I'm going to put on my homeowner hat, and I'm going to tell you things that I would want to do if I were you. Now, if I were the builder, I wouldn't necessarily like some of this stuff, but it is what it is. And you're the homeowner. It's your home. You're getting ready to spend a bunch of money, so you need to get it the way you want. The first thing I want to stress to you, which you learned in the program, is not only have a set of plans, house plans, you need to have specifications. Because if you go to 3 builders and have 3 builders bid on your home just from a set of plans, as you learn from the program, those prices could go from A to Z. And if you just choose a cheaper builder, you may not be getting what you want, because builder A, which may be the cheapest, could be building a Chevrolet, where builder C was going to build you a Mercedes. And what determines whether you build a Chevrolet or a Mercedes or a Cadillac will be the specifications describing the quality of material in your home. So it's imperative you have specifications along with your plans. And I recommend, especially after you've gone through this program, that you put the specifications together. Don't just tell the builder to put it together. Now, if you do that, then you need to get a copy of them, and whoever else is bidding on the job, they need to use the same specifications so that so you're comparing apples with apples and oranges with oranges. In choosing a builder, I will say that builders that are members of the Home Builders Association, the National Association of Home Builders, they may not be the best builders in the world. However, they are wanting to be good builders. And the fact that they're members of an organization like this means that they're trying to be, a step above the other builders. And they can go to classes and learn more about construction and be certified in these areas. I will tell you, though, there's a lot of good builders out there that are not members of the Home Builder Association. So don't discount someone because they're not a member. But I will say those that are members, I think that's a good place to get started. That's also a place you can complain to if you are having issues with the home. Not that they can really do anything, but they can boot that builder out of the Home Builder Association if a problem is not resolved. I think the most important thing in choosing a builder is you get 3 bids. You get 3 references, and those references need to be current. And the first thing you need to do is you need to call all 3 references. And I will tell you, if someone's having a problem with a builder, it's like a divorce. If you talk to someone that's had a divorce, they'll tell you everything about divorce. If they are not happy with the builder, then they will tell you everything. And talk with someone that has lived in the home at least a year, but not somebody they built for, let's say, 20 years ago, because that builder may not be as good as it used to be. So talk with someone that's fairly current, but has lived in the home at least a year, because the first year is when the bulk of the problems are going to crop up, and you're going to find out if that builder came back and resolved all those issues during the first year. I would encourage you to also go and look at some of the homes that belong to these recommendations, because beauty is in the eye of the beholder. What looks good to those people may not look good to you. The next item I want to stress is, does the builder keep all of his agreements with you? If he tells you he's going to meet you at 3 o'clock, does he show up at 3 o'clock? If he says he's going to have a bid by Thursday, does he have a bid by Thursday? One thing I've learned from experience, if that builder cannot keep all of his agreements with you up front, I think that is a good indication he will not keep all of his agreements with you during the construction of the home, and that is going to be a problem. I think it's very important in the contract that you have a completion date. If the builder's smart, but you could remind the builder this, I want you to remind the builder of some of these things, even though it helps the builder. The thing you don't want to create is you don't want to set the builder up for a nightmare down the road. Neither of you will win in a situation like that. So go ahead, like on a completion date, understand and have the understanding with the builder that it will be extended because of things beyond the builder's control, such as you, the owner, ordering something coming from China, and it takes forever to get to you. An excessive amount of rain, which is determined by the average amount of rain by the National Weather Bureau in your area. If you have excessive rain or something like that, then it will extend the contract. If you have change orders, every time you do a change order, it can extend the days on a contract. But that being said, have a completion date and an understanding that if he goes beyond the completion date, he will be penalized per day. I will admit, contracts where I had a completion date and a penalty if I went over the completion date, it really kept me focused and kept a fire under me to get that home built. Now, be fair on the daily charge. If you're spending so much money per month for rent or where you're living and other expenses, just divide it by 30, and that's your daily charge. And come up with a fair figure that they will be charged per day, such as the interest on the loan. if they go beyond that completion date, subject to the items I mentioned. If the builder's smart, he will give you a written warranty. I would like to possibly have one of these home warranties. I will say the home warranties in some states are better than home warranties in other states. The good part about having a home warranty, it can add clarity on what the builder's responsible for and what you're responsible for. Technically, if the builder doesn't give you a written warranty, technically they could be liable for the rest of their life. But I'd like to just have a warranty because it clears up who's responsible for what, so there's no regarding the cost plus versus a firm contract. I will say a firm contract, you sleep a lot easier at night. The problem with a builder giving you a firm contract is when a builder gives you a firm contract, we pad it with so much money just to cover the unknown that you may be paying a significant amount of excess money on a firm contract. I think the better solution is to work on a cost plus with the builder. And when you work on a cost plus, don't work on cost plus 10% or 15% or something like that. Convert it to a fixed fee, cost plus $20,000, cost plus $40,000. Convert it to a fixed fee and not a percentage, because if you work on a percentage, you fall into that trap of thinking, now wait, the more he spends, the more he's going to earn. And then all of a sudden you're not trusting the builder. And that is not a good place to be during the construction of the home. That way, if you watch your prices and keep your costs down, that you're going to pay, less money as opposed to a firm contract. There is one major thing you must do on a cost plus contract, though. This is very, very important. You must stipulate in a cost plus contract that this home is going to be cost plus, let's say $40,000, guaranteed not to exceed, let's say $250,000. If you don't put a top end on a cost plus contract, you are opening the door to one of the biggest horror stories in your life. I've been involved in situations where on cost plus contracts, the home would exceed cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. This is a nightmare you don't want to be involved in. So you have a guaranteed not to exceed price on a cost plus contract. Food for thought, just to ensure the builder will shop prices and possibly come underneath that guarantee not to exceed figure, because you're going to be thinking, well, if he guaranteed not to exceed, let's say $300,000, then more than likely the home is going to cost $300,000, like a firm contract. Maybe to encourage the builder to get under that $300,000 is tell the builder any money he saves underneath that $300,000, you'll split it 50-50. He gets half, you get half. Just food for thought. You can think about it. Anything you can encourage him to come underneath that price. The one thing I don't want you to be concerned about is the builder cutting corners that you don't want him to cut. For that reason, now you have a lot of knowledge from the course. However, you may want to hire an outside inspector, a real good home inspector, or someone to come in during construction at different phases to make sure the home is being built according to plans and specs. And you could do like the banks will do in commercial work. You can use that inspector as a contingency for the builder to receive payment. When he passes that inspection, your outside consultant or inspector, then you will issue payment to the builder based on that inspection, the approval of that inspection. And that way you don't have to worry about them cutting corners you don't want them to cut or cutting quality. When you get a total bid from the builder, I would recommend you go through the RS Means residential cost book we talked about in the initial stages of the course, and just go ahead and calculate your home under RS Means. and see how that total cost compares to what the builder is quoting you. It should be fairly close. If there's a huge difference between the two, then I would do some more questions. I would do some more getting bids. I don't mind the builder earning a fair profit. I just don't want to get rich in the past that I want you to steer clear of is the builder may come to you and say, okay, I'll build your home, and what I need you to do is I need you to transfer title to your land over to me, and I'm going to go to my bank and borrow money in my name to build your home, and I'll be putting your land up as collateral. So that sounds pretty good to you. So you transfer the title of your land over to the builder. The builder puts your land up as collateral, and they borrow money in their name to build your home. Halfway during construction, you and the builder are having a major falling out. And you're on the job site just giving the builder a piece of your mind, and the builder looks at you and says, would you please get off my property? I want you to understand what could happen. The builder could get killed, and now your land is tied up in his estate. Now, I don't care how you work this out. If you're needing the builder to borrow money in their name to build your home, and you've got to put the land up as collateral, I would get with an attorney and decide how this can be done so that you are protected. My preference would be that you borrow the money in your name and you are hiring the builder, because in this industry, he who has the gold makes the rules. And if you control the money, you control everything. If the builder controls the money, you lose a huge amount of control. And that's control. If I were the owner, I would not want to give up. On the reverse, if I were the builder, I would not want to give up. But if I were in your shoes, I would control the money. And the way you control it is by the construction loan being in your name, not the builder's name. And that being said, a lot of construction loans, they pay every penny directly to the builder, except maybe the last 10%. My preference would be, unless you just feel real warm and cozy about this builder, my preference would be every draw has to come through you and from you to the builder. That would be my preference, because again, you would be controlling the money, and that way you're making sure nothing gets out of hand. Every time the builder is paid a partial payment, in order to receive that partial payment, they need to sign a lien waiver stating they have paid for all material and labor. And the builder may come back and hit you with logic. Well, I can't sign that because I haven't received the money. So I'm not going to sign that everybody's been paid. They're just BSing you. We know in this industry that we sign these affidavits to get the money, and this ensures when we get the money, everybody gets paid. But nobody's going to be arrested and charged with a crime just because they signed it prior to receiving the money. And they know this, and if they balk on this, then something is amiss as far as I'm concerned. In your handbook are a list of allowances I think you should have prices for when you're getting the bid from the builder. If the builder's smart, he will go ahead and get allowances for all these items and put them in the contract, because there's no way you're going to know the price of this until you purchase these items and or do the work. And so what I want to encourage you is, if you don't see any of these allowances in the contract, you need to ask questions. Let's start off with the first one, clearing and grading. You can go to the builder and say, okay, Mr. Builder, I noticed in your price here, you didn't have anything allowed for clearing and grading. And the builder may come back and say, oh yeah, I never do. Well, if you don't mind me asking, what do you think it's going to cost to clear and grade my property and dig for a basement? Well, I figure it's going to cost about $10,000. That's what I put in there. Okay, that may be enough, but what if you're digging for my basement and we hit a little rock or we run into a problems and it costs $20,000? Who's going to pay the difference? And the builder looks at you and says, "Well, you're going to pay it." Okay, well, I'm glad to know that. I'm glad to know it. Let's go to the next item. But nothing is worse than for you to get ready to pick out all your lighting, for example, and you want to spend $6,000 for lighting, and all of a sudden you find out the builder only allowed you $1,500 for lighting. That is a major upset during construction. So to the best of your ability, get prices for all these things so that you will know if you go over, then you're going to have to pay the difference. And put in writing that any money you come underneath an allowance, you are given credit. Don't assume when you come underneath an allowance that the builder is going to give you credit. If it's not in writing, you may not some of these allowance amounts. You may want to go check them out. If the builder has $12 a square yard for carpet, go look at $12 a square yard carpet. Because you may not be happy with $12 a square yard carpet. You may want $20 a square yard carpet. If they have in there $1,500 for lighting, just go to the light store and they'll show you your basic rooms where you have your major lighting, like the foyer, the dining room, and stuff like this. And just quickly go through and see a couple of light fixtures that you like and just get a quick little tally and see if it looks like, say, $1,500 is going to be adequate. But if you just pick 3 or 4 lights out and they come to $3,000, then you know you need to add more to that allowance. Have it understood with the builder that all change orders must be in writing. You encourage to get all change orders in writing. Tell the builder if the change order is not in writing, you are not going to pay for it. And that'll build the fire under him to get these change orders in writing. And these are as important, if not more so, for the builder than they are for you. But this will prevent this major, major, major upset at the end of construction. And the builder comes up and hands you $30,000 worth of change orders, and you had no idea that these changes came to that much money. So you require change orders. They must be in writing. There must be a dollar amount. If this is going to extend the length of the contract, you need to know that, and you better hang on to them, and you better add them up, because you will be amazed to know that these nickels and dimes turn into thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars by the end of construction. On your contracts and forms, we may have some things available at 24/7 for you, but there is a company at 24/7. I think we have a promo discount called Threshold Builder Forms, and there you can get contracts between owners and builders. The American Institute of Architects, you can purchase from them forms between owners and builders that you can use and fill out. Your realtors, they have forms that are used between owners and builders. Your home builder association, they have recommended forms between owners and builders. And you can see all these items, some of which we may have copies of at 24/7. Just check on it. But just like we mentioned in the course, the reason you want all this stuff done is to clear up assumptions. And one thing that's going to help clear up assumptions is to have a finish schedule so that you and a builder agree on what's going in each room, primarily like on the floors, for example. You want to know whether it's going to be carpet or hardwood or ceramic tile. And you'll sign off on it, and the builder will sign off on it. And this will prevent you during construction. You go in and the builder is putting carpet in a room, and you say, "Now, wait a minute, I thought we were putting hardwood floors in this room." And all of a sudden the builder comes back and says, "Oh, no, we're putting carpet because you said you couldn't afford the hardwood flooring." And you're just totally confused. So you have a finish schedule, and both of you sign off on this finish schedule on, example, what's going on the floors. and clear up these assumptions. Because as I told you in class or in the courses, anytime you assume anything, you're going to make an ass out of you and me, which spells assumption or assume. So clear up these assumptions. And last but not least, in dealing with the builder, I want to mention what we said about dealing with subs. If you're talking with a builder and you're just negotiating with a builder and getting bids from a builder, if your gut feeling is telling you it just doesn't feel good with this person, I want you to listen to that gut feeling and I want you to pass over that builder. Because listen to that intuitive feeling, that still small voice that may be guiding you to steer clear of that builder and stay away from it.